Hi, everybody. Welcome to Networking at Events today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us. My name is Roxanne Fenton. I'm the Associate Director in Career and Professional Development, and I'll be guiding our conversation today. It's great to see all of you here. Just to give you an idea what we're going to cover today, it is going to be a conversation, but it's going to be a guided conversation. Alejandro, our speaker, and I met a couple of times to discuss what we wanted to cover and all of the great stories that Alejandro has to tell. So we just kind of work those into an organization for you. So we're going to start out a little philosophical about what networking is, and then we'll get really practical, talking about how to prep for going to an event and what to do at the event. And then we'll get a little thoughtful again about how to make the most of the event and how to follow up from the event. So that's where we are headed today. My guest today is Alejandro Sandoval, who is a 2022 graduate of illustration, focusing on entertainment arts. You may recognize Alejandro. He was the ACSG Vice President in 2020 and 2021. Not quite that long. Although, Alejandro, I'm sure it felt like forever that you were in school, but it wasn't quite that long. And he is a concept artist and a networking strategist. Since early 2023, I've been following Alejandro on LinkedIn, where he posts about events he attends, his artwork, what he's reading and listening to, things he's learning, and more. Alejandro is really active on LinkedIn and is a great person to follow. So we're going to start our conversation, as I said, with a little bit about networking. And I'm starting with a quote that Alejandro said in our first meeting: when you build your community, the network follows. And that's where we're going to start our conversation today. So I'm going to jump in and out of slides so that you can see Alejandro. If you want to put us on speaker view, get a nice view of the conversation. But Alejandro, why don't we take that quote of yours and tell me, how you've developed your philosophy of networking.
Sure. Thanks, Roxanne. Thanks everybody for having me here. It's lovely to see you all and be back in the Art Center space, even if it's digital. Yeah, 21 years in ACSG was quite a long run. But yeah, so the whole idea of community building as a networking tool, which has been my approach for networking, started when I was I think I attended a talk a few years ago, and there was this recruiter from Disney who said, when you networking isn't just about making friends that will find you work, it's about building a community and rising together. And I remember that idea resonated with me so much that I wrote it down, and I kind of followed through with that. And I realized after I graduated, having been to so many events, that this idea of community building really is literally just connecting with people like you today, like friends that I've made across the industry, and we help each other out. So we're like, networking is something we all do in everyday life. You want a recommendation for a restaurant or something, you ask a friend, right? You're exchanging information. You're like, where do I go for this thing? That's sharing information, exchanging ideas. But I like to take that one step further, and like that quote from earlier, I like to say, we can exchange information and share ideas, but how can we also support and uplift each other in this industry? And I found that if we do that and we're active with that and we show that we care, that our network naturally does follow. And that's been very successful. It is to recognize that it isn't just about me as much as I want to have a thriving career in games. It feels just as good knowing that we can help other people in the industry succeed, especially when they're feeling like, down, and they feel like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know how to get to this thing, or I don't know who to talk to. I don't know how to write a LinkedIn post. It's a rewarding experience, and it nurtures the soul.
Great. And what have you found has been the way that that's affected that you approach events, that philosophy?
I found that it's helped me prepare for events a lot more in depth. So, like for example, Lightbox is coming up in a few weeks, and I I'm touching base with all these people that I've met over the past 8 months, 9 months, and I'm already scheduling meetups. And we're sharing information about portfolio reviews that I can't find on LinkedIn or I can't find on a company website. Or they're like, I've got a friend who's got a friend that works in what you want to do. You should meet up with them. And this is like behind the scenes stuff that's happening. And all of this, you have to recognize that this is seeds that we planted 10 months ago when we met at Lightbox or Afro Animation, and now they're coming to fruition months and months later. And just recognizing that that was a long-term effort in making that happen, getting those unique opportunities. I can't find it anywhere else.
Yeah. So it's not so much that you're going into this, even though you want a job, you're not going into this with the plan to ask people at these events for jobs.
That's exactly it. And I want to emphasize that I have heard people do get jobs, and that's great for them. But to give people that expectation, don't go in with the expectation that I'm going to go into Lightbox or whatever event it is, and I'm going to get a job, because that puts so much stress on you as the individual with like that mental mindset. But if you go in with the expectation, so earlier I asked everybody to put so what are your goals for the conference? I said my 3 goals are to make friends, learn about the industry, and have fun. Nowhere in my goal list did I say I'm going to get a job, because if you do that, if I say I'm going to mentally do this thing, I'm going to get a job before I go to this event, you're subconsciously training your mind to have every conversation you have geared towards, how do I get a job? How can you get me a job? What can you do for me? How can we make this all about me? And when you do that, I begin to realize that you start to create a rift, and you're not really building relationships. You're trying to create a transaction, and you don't want transactions, because this isn't a car. You're not going in to buy a short-term thing. You're trying to build relationships. You want to go in the mindset of, how can I build a relationship with these people that I'm connecting with in the industry?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really a key understanding. This is relationship building. It's a social activity, and that people like to help people that they have relationships with.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah. All right, let's jump back to our slides and kind of recap a little bit this philosophy. So you want to manage your expectations when you're headed into a networking event, so that you don't set yourself up for disappointment, but you also don't put too much pressure on yourself. You're planting seeds, Alejandro, you said this, that are going to bear fruit later on. And I think it's also helpful to think about staying curious about other people. That if you think, like you said, I want to make new friends, that really helps you have a mindset that is going to be fruitful. And people are going to want to connect with you because you're interested in them. And then, as you've talked about, you build those relationships and you help each other.
Yes, yes, all of that. And I just want to add one last thing, if I can, with the stay curious. Stay curious about other people, ask about them. I went to an event this past Friday in San Francisco, chatted with this lovely gentleman. We talked for 25 minutes or so. And he said, "Oh, it's so great talking to you, Alejandro. I enjoyed our conversation." I said, I did too. But if I realized, like, we spent most of the time talking about him, so it was fun for me because I get to learn about him. But stay curious about other people, because people are interesting, and we're all storytellers. We're all artists. We should always be collecting stories. We should always be inspired by other people, and just really tap into that stay curious mindset of when you want to connect with somebody and learn about them and learn about the industry.
All right. Now, you mentioned prep work that you were doing for Lightbox, for example, connecting with people, because your time during the event is a resource. Again, I'm paraphrasing you here. So tell me about prep work.
Oh, there is so much to say about prep work. Actually, we were just talking about this earlier, but uh, the first thing I'll say about prep work is that you treat this like an art center prompt. And I know whenever we get an art center prompt, they say like half of the work is just the research. So do the exact same thing for any event. So I'll give you an example. We're talking about Lightbox primarily. So Lightbox, they have all of these speakers, right? I just saw that TV Choi, who's a big concept artist, is going to be there. Aaron Stout, who's a big storyboard artist. Really big designers are going to be there. So the first thing I would do if my knowing what my focus is, right? So my focus right now is concept design for character design for video games. So what I would do is I'm going to go research everything I can find about TV Choi on LinkedIn, on her website, put in all this prep work and understand who she is, where she comes from, and take that with you to the event. So when you're at the event, you'll know who TV Choi is, you have a background or you have an understanding of her. And then also, uh, research the sponsors. Every event has a sponsor. So go on the Lightbox website. Who's the sponsors? Lucasfilm, Pixar, Disney, and then figure out if they're, usually when there's a sponsor, there's going to be recruiters. So then go to the company website and look at is Lucasfilm going to have portfolio reviews? I did some research a few days ago, and they are. So submit for a portfolio review. Stay up to date on LinkedIn. Pixar is going to be there, and they're having a portfolio review, but they booked up within 4 hours. But all of this is just I'm treating this like an art center prompt. I'm trying to learn everything I can about this event online and through my network of people before I even step one foot in the door. And this puts you in an opportunity where you can take advantage of information as it comes at you. So if you get a chance to talk to TV Choi and ask a question at the Lightbox panel, you'll be fully prepared with who she is, and you'll have a more well-equipped question to ask than something generic because you know who she is. TV Choi, and you mentioned something about your Disney-esque background and how you use this to bring this into your work. Can you talk more about that? Like you're really preparing yourself, and to recognize that it not only makes you more prepared, it makes you stand out in the audience because panelists love it when you ask a good question because they will tell you that if you go up to them and say, it was so great meeting with you. It was so great hearing you today. They'll tell you, thank you. That was a great question. Thank you so much for participating, or thank you for being here. So it's just another way to build a connection too with the panelists or whoever you want to talk to.
Yeah, that's great advice. And we've all heard those questions that aren't really a question,
Yeah.
that kind of rambling. You don't want to be that person, right?
Yeah.
You want to
Yeah.
you want to stand out for a good reason.
Yes.
How did you hear about like the Pixar portfolio reviews? How do you find things on LinkedIn? Are you searching the companies? What are you doing?
Hashtags are great. I follow hashtags. So I used to follow hashtags on DreamWorks early careers so I could be notified on early careers for DreamWorks internships. But use LinkedIn for the hashtags. What I also like to do is follow the recruiters, but be specific. So if you're, a technical recruiter is going to be a recruiter who focuses only on hiring computer science or programming or anything like that. So if you're not interested in that, don't follow a technical recruiter. Focus on the art recruiter or focus on the early career recruiter, or look for the Pixar company website and see if they have any like ERG, which is an employee resource group for their company, and see if you can find any, like they'll talk about it on their company website. Our ERG group did this at this conference. See if there's any names that pop up, and then find that person on LinkedIn and then follow them. So there's different ways you can go about that, but you got to go beyond the company website. You got to dig deep, and LinkedIn is an amazing networking tool. It is not a job posting website, folks. It is a networking tool. And this whole talk is about networking and it's about community building. So if you're not on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn. Even if you're an artist, get on LinkedIn. And then if you're an artist, get on ArtStation, but still use your LinkedIn and use it. Don't let it sit there. Fill out your profile, build your brand, build your audience, let people know that you exist, and interact with people, just like you're going to do at Lightbox.
Great advice. Great advice. Do you have, I think we talked about you connecting with an Activision recruiter through some prep work that you had done.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so I'll put this practice. I'll give you an example of how I put this in practice. I was going to Latinx and Games Festival a few weeks ago, and I did research Activision Latinx and Games Festival, and I saw a recruiter pop up, and they had a QR code on their post. They said, "I'm going to be at Latinx and Games. Fill out this QR code. We'll see you there." And so I fill out the QR code, but I not only do that, I interact with that post, and then I comment and say, "Just fill out your form. I look forward to meeting you there. It'll be fun." And then that was on a Thursday. So then I get there on a Saturday and I'm walking around this really small conference room and I see somebody with an Activision shirt and I think that's the recruiter. I'm not sure, so I just go and say hi. I'm a friendly guy. So I go say hi. And then I say, introduce myself. Well, hi, my name is Alejandro, and I'm wearing the yellow hoodie, green hat, right? Um, and this recruiter was like, "Oh, Alejandro, I was looking forward to meeting you. I was looking for you in the audience. I'm so glad that we were able to connect." And and apparently this was the recruiter that I had, interacted with on LinkedIn, and she remembered me, and we instantly hit it off and we went beyond like that awkward phase of, "Hi, how do I talk to you, person that I don't know, but you're in a role that they could benefit my career," to like just talking about the event, talking about LinkedIn, talked about community building, and it was great. And it was a great example of putting in the prep work, right? Putting in that prep work. It took me only 5 minutes. Fill out the QR code, interact on the post, and comment and make myself stand out. And she was looking for me in the audience that day. And that is what I want for all of you today listening to this talk. Find ways where you can stand out amongst the thousands of people that are going to be at these events. And it's these literally 5 minutes of prep work has a huge payout.
Fabulous. Yeah, that's exciting that she was looking for you. And you wouldn't, she wouldn't have known that you were interested. Maybe, you wouldn't have stood out from everybody who filled out the form at the QR code if you hadn't commented.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, so let's talk a little or wrap up a little what we talked about with prep work. So you talked about researching, whether that's the website of the companies that you're interested in, the program for the event, who the speakers are, who the sponsors are. You talked about watching for opportunities that require submission in advance. So a lot of the companies that offer portfolio reviews at events like this, they collect portfolios in advance and then they schedule out who they want to talk to. So be watching for those and follow hashtags. Whether that's on LinkedIn or maybe you're on Instagram, still follow those hashtags on Instagram, wherever you are active on social media. Any other thoughts about that?
Uh, the only thing I will add to that is just to don't overwhelm yourself when you're starting out with this. Just pace yourself. But just treat it like an art center prompt. When you start thinking of it like an art center prompt, it becomes so much easier to grasp the concept behind all of this prep work, this building this stuff up to make your career a success.
All right. Well, let's talk about what you do when you actually get to the event. So we're going to get really practical now, some real details, and I'm going to go ahead and share my summary to start with so that people can kind of see what we're going to talk about. So we'll talk about starting a conversation. We'll talk about being recognizable, how you collect contact information, maybe take a friend, and as Alejandro's already mentioned, pacing yourself. So let's get into the details. Like, how do you start conversations? What do you use? I know
I'll
you're an
use it.
outgoing guy, but
I'll use anything. I mean, I have a jar of peanut butter here that I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna eat some peanut butter." Like, I don't know. It's just you can start a conversation about anything. But I think that's where it's easy. The easiest thing for me is to always compliment somebody's if they have like a backpack and they have a keychain, or they have shoes that are interesting, or they're wearing a cool sweater. Like that's always an easy, safe space to say, hey, like that's a really cool keychain. Like, what is that? Can you tell me more about that? If it's something that somebody has on their person, they'll be excited to talk about it and share about it. So that's always a good safe space, or like an even better one, engaging around the actual event. So you could say, how's Lightbox going? How's Lightbox going for you? Did you get to go to that panel? Did you get your portfolio review? Like, how's everything been for you? Like any tips you have for me? Like just make it about anything. Like how's the weather today? I love that local sports team. I don't know. You could just come up with something, but whatever is comfortable for you. But I find that it's just keep it centered around um I don't know, making it fun, making it friendly. Don't overthink it, you know. Or you could say, hey, how's it going? How's your day going? How's it, you know? Yeah. But I don't know. I think people can overthink that one. And I think that can be quite difficult. But I say just have fun with asking questions.
Yeah. Eilish put a resource in the chat that our office has put together with some small talk tips. So it includes things like Alejandro mentioned, talking about the event, talking about what somebody's wearing, all of those kind of things. Advice that I saw on a LinkedIn post was everybody is feeling awkward. And most of the time, people are really glad when you break the ice. They're really thankful that you said something. So don't be afraid to just jump in there and, say hi, wave, smile, make eye contact, because people
Yeah,
will thank you for it.
yeah, you know, I'm recognizing that I was a salesman for 10 years, so that's kind of ingrained in me at this point to talk to people. But I'll give you an example, not even related to an art event. I went to a concert in Berkeley a few days ago. So got to see Death Cab for Cutie. I'm a huge fan. And I'm walking back to the bus, and this young woman has a bag that has one of the quotes from one of the songs on it. And I'm just literally no went there by myself, you know, walking back, and I just said, "That's a really cool bag. What was your favorite song in the band?" And her and I literally talked the entire way back. It was 20-minute talk, complete stranger. And all it took was for me to say was, "That's a really cool bag. What was your favorite song?" And you'll be surprised that people are willing to open up, especially when it surrounds something that they're passionate about. So tap into their passion, and they'll just go on, and you can just have a great conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about being recognizable and tell us your story. You're wearing your uniform. Tell us about this.
Well, so it's a funny story. I mean, this is a Chili Peppers hoodie. I'm a huge Chili Peppers fan, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I got it because I was at a concert and I was like, oh, I love the Chili Peppers. This is wacky. I'd never wear this ever before. So I got it, and then a few months later, I was at Lightbox and I was cold, and I grabbed this thing, and I remember being there the first day and getting all these compliments about it. And then over the course of the next 3 days, people would be like, "Hey, Alejandro, I met you yesterday. I saw your hoodie from like a mile away." And I realized that at Lightbox last year that this was a good way to stand out. Um, Not just because of the fact that it was just really bright, but also if I looked at the audience of people around me, everybody was wearing gray or black or brown, and having a significant like identifier, something that can make me visually stand out, really helped build my brand visually. And so I just kind of leaned into that, and I've been wearing this thing at every single of I watch it all the time. Thank you. But I'm wearing this hoodie to every single event I go to, and without fail, it makes me stand out, and people recognize me in photos. And so, yeah, what I would say to that is, I earlier we talked about keychains or something like, you know, something on your backpack. Find something for you that you feel comfortable wearing. Could be like cat ears or a cool hoodie or something, and you know, try to use that as your sort of visual brand whenever you go to an event, and people could recognize you for that. And you could just kind of use that also as a starting point for a conversation, like, "Oh, this is my really cool Chili Peppers hoodie. I love the Chili Peppers. What's your favorite song?" Right? And then suddenly you have a, you know, conversation with a complete stranger, all because you're wearing something that you love, and it makes you stand out amongst the crowd.
Yeah. I think that's something that we may not think about, but it could be, something as simple as a pair of shoes. Maybe you have really fun, funky glasses that you don't always wear, but maybe you want to wear them always to events. Make a button with some of your artwork, and put it on your, you can wear it on your chest, or you can put it on your backpack, or put it on your purse, or maybe you're really into a particular anime, or you're into a particular video game. Wearing some, like, those are all things that you can do that give people an in to talk to you and help them remember you. Oh, I saw you yesterday with your button.
Yes, and just to kind of tap into that real quick, it's brand identity. Like, so this Green Lantern hat, I'm a Green Lantern fan. Everybody knows that I love Green Lantern because I'm wearing a Green Lantern. And so favorite anime, favorite shoes, favorite something, it's a part of your brand identity and you can use it in a conversation. Yeah, that's great. Great advice, Roxanne.
Yeah. We had a question in the chat that wraps into this. Is there something that would be considered inappropriate to wear at any event?
That's a good question. For me, I would say just follow whatever the guidelines are for the conference. If they say don't wear anything to this or that, don't wear anything too intense. Maybe obviously the first thing I would think of, don't wear anything too intense, like any violence or gore, because there's going to be a wide range of audiences there. And also, if you're going to meet a potential employer, is that the first impression that you want to give them? Is that like this really intense visceral image? Like, no, you want to be creative, right? Nickelodeon is like, you want to be creative, you want the best of you, we want the kid in you, right? So you want to be creative, you want to have fun with it, but also you do want to balance that out with being professional and recognize that anybody in the audience at one point in the future could be your future employer. And so anything you do, anything you're wearing at that event could leave a mark on them. So you want to be remembered as somebody who's creative and fun and playful, but also professional. So find that balance, Lauren, of what you think is professional and creative.
Yeah. So probably not your profanity t-shirt.
Now, save that for the barbecue.
How do you collect contact information?
There's a few ways. We have an app called the Blink app that I use that's free, and I think Roxanne has a link for that. You can use, it's a digital business card. You can have it on your phone. It's a QR code. You can scan somebody's business card. And what's great about that is it tells you when you met the person, and you could write notes about the person. So it helps you keep track of information, like person, like, oh, this person liked this thing. So when I follow up with them, I'll mention this. So it kind of builds, it's a way to maintain and connect that relationship that you built. The other thing that I've found is that if I get a business card, I'm probably not going to keep it, but I will take a photo of it so I can remember to follow up with that person. But I'm not gonna like, just a business card is physical space. I don't have a lot of physical space. The other thing you could do is LinkedIn QR codes. That's a good way. Everybody has LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn QR code. Scan that, or give somebody your QR code, and then whenever you guys connect, make sure to take a screenshot so you know who you're connected with that day, and then you could follow up with them later in the week, or a few days after the event. But if you recognize, all of these things are about, yeah, you're going to exchange information, but you also got to make a mental note or some sort of reminder for you to follow up with them, because doing the follow up is part of the process of going to these events, because you want to build upon that relationship that you've initiated at the conference.
Yeah. Excellent. I think the thing that you're saying that's really important that we sometimes forget about is to find a way to make notes. To
Yes.
find a way, because you're gonna experience a lot at the event, and you're probably not going to remember it all. So all the breadcrumbs that you can leave yourself, a trail of who you met and what you talked about, is really beneficial.
Yes. Great,
Yeah.
great advice. Yes.
Yeah. Talk about pacing yourself at the event.
When I was at Art Center, I used to get really overwhelmed around midterms and finals. And then I used to tell myself, for me to catch up, I have to slow down. And I do the same thing when I'm at a conference. It's very easy to be overwhelmed because you feel like I need to do everything under the sun for the next 2 or 3 days or however long I'm here to make the most of this time. But that is the quickest way to get burnt out. So pacing yourself is listening to yourself, listening to your body, recognize when you're tired, and you'll recognize that when you feel like you realize you can't maintain a conversation or you can't think of a good idea or you can't like you everything is too much. There's too much stimulation. So when that happens, listen to your body and pace yourself. Take a break, go for a walk outside, find somewhere to rest for 20 minutes, listen to your favorite song, do whatever you need to do to reset yourself because quality is always going to be more important than quantity, and you want to leave an impact, a conversational impact with everybody you connect with. So it's really just about listening to yourself and recognizing that for you to catch up, you have to slow down.
All right. That sounds great. And then we also made the suggestion that you might want to take a friend.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that'd be great. Um, yeah, have a friend there. Having a friend there is a trusted ally. You two can go on one side of the conference, you go on the other. You two can go to panels together. Hold my seat while I go to the bathroom. Just these little things. You could look out for each other's stuff. You could have, you know, uh, find ways to connect with people in a group setting. If you have two people, it's kind of easier when you have two people instead of a loner. Just there's so many benefits, and also it's kind of like going to a movie by yourself compared to going to a movie with a friend. You go to a movie by yourself, it's cool, it's fun, you had the experience, but it's only like, oh, my perspective. But if you go with a friend and then you talk about the movie, you're like, oh man, that was really cool. What did you think about that? And they'll say something that you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. That's interesting. Like you could have a conversation around the event and you can learn more from each other. So if you can go with a friend or go with a few friends that you trust, that would be awesome, an awesome experience to take advantage of.
Great. All right, back to the slides because we're going to keep moving here. We want to make sure we leave time for questions. Another thing that you said in our first conversation that I really loved is luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So this idea that you've done the prep work, you're in the space, now you're going to take advantage of what comes up. So tell me a little bit about that. Tell me, I know you've got some great stories about how you were able to take advantage of the moment at a networking event.
Yeah, is so I feel like this particular quote is basically everything that we talked about today, all the prep work, going in well informed, pacing yourself, having your portfolio ready. Um, so I think this is the respawn story, right,
Mhm.
Roxanne? So this is a great story, an example. And actually, I have a prop here to show you. So I have my portfolio here that I bring with me to events. And this is like the hoodie thing. I realized that I've been to 12 events so far, and only one other person has brought a physical portfolio. So then I thought, how do I stand out amongst the crowd of artists? So I printed my portfolio and I went to the Latinx and Games Festival a few weeks ago. And Respawn was there. They had a booth because they were sponsors. And so I knew they were going to have a booth. So I did some homework, came prepared, went to Respawn's booth, brought my portfolio to the recruiter, and the recruiter was very kind. He's like, "Well, actually, I don't look at the art. I'm just a general recruiter, blah blah blah." But he looked at my work, and it was really nice. And we were having a conversation, and I thought, well, okay, it was worth a shot, right? You bring your portfolio at the very least. It's a conversation starter. So I'm standing there talking to this guy, just chatting it up, and this other gentleman walks by and my portfolio is just sitting there at the table, and I'm talking to this recruiter, and this other guy walks by, and he's like, "Can I take a look at that?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah, sure, sure, why not?" We're like, nervous, right? So he starts looking at my portfolio, and then he's like, "I like this. Oh, I like this is a good one. I like this is you got some good ideas here." And the recruiter that I was talking to was like, "Oh yeah, you should be talking to that guy about art because he's the senior 3D modeler for the Star Wars game." And so this guy that was just walking by, looks at my portfolio, and we connected. And he's like, "Yeah, you know what? Just message. Here's my contact info. Message me after the event, and I'll give you feedback." And we're connected on ArtStation right now, and he's been giving me some tips on 3D modeling, things like that. But if we realize all of that happened is because I brought a portfolio and I put myself in a situation where I'd get lucky. And like the quote says, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And all I did was to try to be as prepared as possible. Because if I didn't have that portfolio, that random encounter wouldn't have happened. So try to get lucky, guys. Get lucky. Find ways to get lucky.
Yeah. Take advantage of the moment.
Yes.
All right. So let's sum that up. That's exactly what we just said. Take advantage of the prep work and be open to the moment. All right, we're coming to our last topic, which we've been alluding to all along, which is that the event is just the beginning and you want to develop the connections that you made. So tell me about how you've developed the connections that you make at networking events.
There's so many examples, but I think I'll give the first example that got me my first freelance job as a character concept artist in the video game industry. It was because I had gone to an event at GDC, and I made friends with this guy who was just sitting there by himself. And I said hi. He said hi to me. I said hi back. We started talking, and we maintained that connection over the course of the next few months. And by maintaining that connection, I'd send him resources about game development, and he'd send me stuff. And I'd say, we talked about horror games like Resident Evil. So I'd send him stuff about that. And he'd send me things. And then he called me up one day for a Zoom chat, and I got on the Zoom call, and I thought it was just a casual catch up going on. And he offered me my first job. And it was on the spot, didn't expect it, like wasn't planned for it. And I realized all of that happened is because I simply maintained that relationship the same way that I would maintain a friendship or any other connection with somebody. Is how are you doing? How's things going on? I noticed that you're looking for a job in programming. I just saw this job listing for a programmer. You should check this out, right? Maybe they're not going to get the job, but they appreciate the fact that you're thinking about them, and that right there builds that community that we were talking about at the very beginning. Build your community and your network will follow. And that is exactly what we've been talking about this entire talk. Build your community and your network will follow. And building your community isn't really that hard. It takes 5 minutes out of your day, 20 minutes a week. Send stuff to somebody who's looking for work, share a motivational post, interact with somebody's content on LinkedIn or Instagram. Make time for other people. Don't make it all about you. And when you do that, you realize that people are so much more willing to help you in return.
Yeah. It's just really that it's a give and take, and that people, if you are interested in people, people are interested in you.
It's just like having a good conversation with somebody, right?
So let's just summarize what Alejandro just said. You're going to follow up on the connections that you make at events, and then nurture the relationship. Think about what others are looking for. It doesn't have to be a lot, doesn't have to be all the time, can just be casual, something crosses your feed. You can do this on LinkedIn, you can do it on Instagram. People are successful networkers in either space. Somebody posts artwork, you comment on, hey, this looks great, I love this about your artwork. Just the idea that it isn't just going to the event is part of a larger process of building a community. So let's wrap up what we've covered before we turn off the recording and get to questions. You're building your community, and you're going to get ready to do that by planning and researching. You want to practice starting the conversation. And again, we put a resource in the chat of some conversation starters. If that doesn't come naturally to you, sometimes having just some practice ideas in your head of what you're going to say can be helpful. Do something that helps make you recognizable to people. Pace yourself. Know that events can be a lot. They can be overwhelming. Go for quality of connection over quantity of connection. You don't have to talk to everybody at the event. You don't have to talk to every recruiter at every company. Do what's manageable for you and your level of comfort talking to other people. Be open to the moment so that luck can happen when preparation meets opportunity, and then build on your connections. So at this point, Alejandro's got a lot of other great stories and a lot of other great experiences, and I want to let you ask questions. I will remind you, you can always email career and professional development at careers@artcenter.edu. And our resource website is available for you. I think Eilish put the link in the chat to our page on networking, which has a lot of the same tips that we've covered today. And we are active on Instagram. So if you want to keep up with what's going on in our office, find out about more workshops like this, follow us on Instagram.